If this were almost any other introduction, I would begin by saying, I'll never forget the first time I met Will Breskman, and then go on to explain why I'll never forget that first encounter. But because it's Will, I'll actually begin by saying that I'll never remember the first time I met Will Breskman. My mom says that on that first day of preschool when I was 3 years old, I left her car crying and came back home talking nonstop about this red-headed kid with lots of freckles. While I don't remember the first time we met, I do remember what's happened since. In preschool, Will quickly became my mentor. He showed me the ways of the playground, taught me tag, explained the difficult concept of the cubby, and walked me through getting my first birthday cookie with icing on it. Will knew everything. The preschool we went to had a saying. It went, "You get what you get at the West Hill School." But whenever I got denied by the school's "you get what you get" policy, Will was there for me. He would share his crayons or whatever item I needed with me, or otherwise trade with other kids in crayon shuffle until he got me what I needed. He got me through just about the toughest scrapes of preschool life. When we were in kindergarten, Will was always the quarterback for football at recess, and together he and I frequently planned our glorious rise to varsity quarterback and running back for the team, and talked about all the touchdowns we would score at E.A. Hafford senior year. But that didn't really work out too well. Will and I also had this game we would play. I'm not really sure how we developed it, but essentially it consisted of he and I shouting out numbers in the backseat of our mom's cars. We would keep going up and up until one of us had to drop out because we didn't know a higher number. The one who remained was the winner. The game was really fun until first grade, when Will pulled out infinity on me, and it was, in both cases, game over. Throughout lower school, Episcopal put us in separate classes every year, which to this day I refuse to believe was anything but a deliberate attempt at trying to keep us from talking all day during class. We played Crash Bandicoot, listened to his brother's Blink-182 CDs, and with the help of Andrew LeBeau and Connor Mack, we created a new game called All Ball, which was without a doubt the greatest sport to ever be played at Marion. After 5th grade, I moved to Minnesota. 3 moves later, though, and I found myself back here in Philly for sophomore year. At this point, with all the new kids and Devon kids joining our class, I knew only about a sixth of the grade and was pretty nervous for my first day of school. By some miracle that I still thank God for, I had exactly the same schedule as Will. I soon found that besides the red hair turning brown, not much had changed with Will, and that he was showing me the way around once again, only this time with high school. This time he taught me the ways of the drop block, got me caught up to speed with Spirit Week, and showed me Miss McLaughlin's stash of mints and candies. For the past 15 years of my life, Will Breskman has always been there for me. Every time I go to his house, his mom always has my favorite chocolate milk and bakery house cakes waiting. Will taught me everything I know about the playground, stuck with me through my moves across the country, and was there for me when I returned here 3 years ago. And I may never remember the first time I met Will Breskman, but I know that I'm really glad that I got what I got at the West Hill School. Please rise to greet him.
Thanks a lot, Jack. That was awesome. Please be seated. On May 26th, 2007, at 5:53 a.m., my fight began. I mean, how much can you really know about yourself if you've never been in a fight? Today's society seems to discourage it. We solve our problems with words. Aggression is just a primitive vestige of the past, used only by cavemen. We say that if we can talk about our problems, that they will go away peacefully and without struggle. This strategy seems to work with our friends, our family, our peers, our teachers, and so on. But it's too bad that life doesn't work the same way. Most of the time, for me at least, life seemed like a big bully in the schoolyard. And for the sake of convenience, I'm going to make my metaphor for life a male. He was fat and mean and much, much bigger than I was. He towered over me with infinite power, and most of the time it just seemed like he had nothing better to do than laugh at me. I might have asked, why me? It's because I had problems, just like we all do. You know, problems with ourselves, problems we think that only we can see. If life was a bully, he could see them too, use them against us, torture us with them. Things we don't think we can face or hear or want to talk about. He doesn't listen to words, or reason, or logic. He has no sense of justice, at least in its human connotation. Life does not fight fairly. In the real world, we solve things by turning around and deciding that bullies have nothing on us. In the real world, we get things done by fighting hard, clawing with everything we've got in a gloves-off, bare-knuckle fight to the end, in hopes that for just a brief moment, we can stand over our bullies and see what it's like to be free. I'm a big believer in the way that one reacts in times of chaos or extreme pressure defines them as a person. Today, I'm going to share with you my fight with my own bully in hopes that you may take some sort of inspiration or at least some interesting information from it. 4 years ago, I like to think that I was a typical 8th grader. I obsessed over the so-called normal things, like grades, my sports, my friends, and my obvious lack of girlfriend. Yet on Saturday, May 26th, 2007, at 5:53 a.m., this all changed. On that day, I learned that time could stand still. I learned that my whole life could change in an instant, and I could see the world through an altogether new lens. I felt the awesome power of hopelessness and helplessness and shock. When I learned that my older brother passed away at the age of 19, for an instant, I was frozen in time. I can still remember the words reluctantly coming out of my father's mouth, and I will never, to this day, forget my reaction. It was not the reaction that one would expect, if that even exists. I heard my father's single staccato line, and I just turned my face into my pillow and thought to myself, what do I do now? I never gave a moment of thought to that situation before it happened, and I had no idea how to react. To be honest, I don't remember much of that day, but I will never forget the question that I posed to myself when I heard about the fate of my brother. We have all been in these situations, and they're not necessarily bad, but they're ones in which we never, ever would imagine ourselves. The shock sets in, the biggest bully of all looms over us, and we have to answer that hardest question. What do I do now? We try beating this bully with words, and I'm sorry, but we will inevitably fail. These kinds of battles are the ones that I referred to earlier, fistfights to the bitter end. The thing that I said about not knowing yourself if you've never been in a fight, well, the contrapositive is also true. My fight that ensued, lasting my entire high school career, taught me everything that I know about myself. My grueling uphill fight to become a better person because of my brother and in order to best honor his memory taught me everything that I know about the world and taught me much more than words ever could. When our bullies finally have us where they want us, backed into a corner, this is when we really show our true colors. This is when we prove ourselves as people of integrity and dignity, and this is where we make our name. We have two options. We can either cower in fear of our problems and insecurities and talk and talk and talk about how they're so big and so scary, and watch the sun rise and set day after day in hopes that some benevolent mythical power will reach out to us. Or we can act. We can fight. We can turn around and fight our way out of that dark corner. We can look our bully in the eye and think, you are nothing. I created you and you answer to me. And we fight to the bitter end until inevitably we will succeed because we are stronger than our bullies. And in knowing this, there is nothing that we cannot confront. There is no problem too big or question too ugly. We can truly be at peace with ourselves. I guess this is one of my biggest battles right now, admitting this to all of you. My bully, as stated before, was pretty obvious. How do I go on to lead a life that best honors my brother's memory? Finally, more than 3.5 years after his death, I think I found the answer, the metaphorical haymaker to the jaw. I've learned the hard way that life is short, so don't ever take it for granted. I know that sounds really, really, really cliche, but cliches gain their reputation for a reason. I'm pretty sure it won't matter whether I'm 19 or 91 when I reach my last day. Either way, I know I'm going to be surprised at how fast it went by. On the same token, there's no time to talk about overcoming problems or achieving aspirations. There's only time for action. If you try to argue with life, all you'll get is regret. I've come to understand that life isn't always nice or fair. Life is not a therapist. In fact, life is so mean that we have to hire therapists to explain why life is such a jerk. Now, I'm not saying that it's okay for me to act on every one of my thoughts without consideration. That would just be reckless. But the fate of my brother did teach me to aggressively pursue everything that I love, because our time here is cruelly short. It is for this reason that I've really tried to dedicate myself to the things that I enjoy here, like my favorite classes, mock trial, and golf, and so on. I found that the only way for me to achieve is to admit my own insecurities, come to terms with them, and go after what I love without fear. Because entitlement is just a delusion of the overconfident. Evan Waddles really did say it best when he said, "Always ask her to dance," because in the end, that's all we can really do. At my brother's funeral, Mike Yoakum spoke about how we all strive to become infinite in death. Well, what better way to become infinite than to die without any demons, with a clean slate? What better way to live life than without fear, in the moment, from the now? The naysayer might say that this is just idealistic babble, and I don't know, maybe it is. But I say in return, why not set the bar high? Why not strive for perfection? Why not? The naysayer does exactly what it sounds like. He says, we, on the other hand, do. We act. We achieve. We look that bully 20 feet taller than we are, and ultimately powerful, and we laugh at the fact that anything dares stand in our way. We, the students of Episcopal Academy, look at each of our individual insecurities and truly question to ourselves, why do I even worry about these things? Why do these things have any power over me? What is the worst thing that could happen? And when we examine ourselves this deeply, admitting things to ourselves that we never thought we could confront, even in the dark of night, and see that our problems are only words, ugly figments of our imagination, we, you, fight to overcome them, and through this fight, we all may become infinite. Thank you.